thought maybe I could start with not crying, but here we are. So this is a really, really sad video. Probably the saddest one yet, as far as I recall. So if you don't want to hear a bunch of sad stuff about pets dying and about any of my pets dying, hit stop. Okay? One just showed up. Lucky me. Danny's still with us. So on Friday, 26th September 2025, Czech died. I really don't want to go into detail, but he was hit by a car, and it was an accident, and it was my fault. But he was also very old, and he couldn't hear my commands, and I wasn't thinking about that. And he was also losing his sight in both eyes, so it was an accident. I'm as mad. I want to be mad at the person who hit him, but I can't even be mad at them because they were driving in a high car, like a high-seated car, and it was dark. My street is fucking dark, and they turned, and I didn't have time to react. Cheng died. I knew he was dead. I knew it was gonna kill him. I saw the whole thing. We rushed to the emergency vet, but I knew he was DOA. I knew it. He died in my arms, which is what I always wanted. Trying to write something else that I didn't put in my notes. So we're going to talk about pets dying today in this vid. Obviously what happened to Czech was horrible and an accident. But I hear just about 100% of the time when someone's pet dies, they always say, it's my fault. I could have done this. I could have done that. I should have taken her in sooner. I shouldn't have given her that treatment. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have gone there. That kind of thing. People always think it's their fault. And hot take, maybe it is your fault. I do take partial responsibility for Czech dying. It's partly my fault. Yeah, it was dark out and everything, but yeah, I was partially my fault, okay? I wasn't thinking about the fact that his hearing was going and his vision was going. I just wasn't thinking about that because usually he was A-okay. Anyway, maybe it is your fault. Maybe you did have some kind of hand in your pet dying, okay? I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't even want to hear people say like, oh, it wasn't your fault, it wasn't your fault. You know what? I'm sure it wasn't all your fault, okay? I'm sure. But what happens a lot of the time when a pet is sick or struggling, you know, they're already elderly and people take it to the vet, and you know, the vet usually gives you a few options. They're like, oh, we can do this, or we can do this other thing, and like all your options aren't even that good. Then what happens to a lot of people is they say, okay, let's do this option. The vet says, I think that's the best option. Then they do that option. And then the pet ends up dying, right? And that's where a lot of people say, oh, it's my fault. I don't know if you guys know Morgan Spurlock, the documentary guy. I think he died last year, but he made some other mini series on Netflix a while ago, and he told this story where he got a gun for his birthday as a kid, and he was so excited to learn to shoot it, and he accidentally shot and killed his own dog that he loved very much when he was, I don't know, 12. That is his fault, obviously, but maybe he thought the dog was somewhere else. I don't think he saw the dog as he was shooting. I think he was shooting at a target and the dog was all the way behind the target, you know? He did not purposely shoot his dog. He did it on accident, but yeah, it was his fault. But he wasn't trying to, right? He wasn't being disgusting and sadistic and murderous, and he wasn't like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna kill my dog. He did that on accident. I'm sure it fucked him up, obviously. But like, you're a kid, you're excited. I think he even said he wanted a gun for a long time. He wasn't, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, but I'm saying, like, if you think your pet dying is your fault, like, was it as bad as what Morgan Spurlock experienced? I'm asking you. Even if you had some part in your pet dying, you would never intend for that to happen. Right? I didn't think so. A friend of mine had a Bengal cat, and those are like really, really, super high energy. They need all kinds of constant stimulation. I heard of this other Bengal cat that someone else had who learned how to turn lights on and off with the switch. So that was what she would do all day, was just turn the lights on and off, or turn the lights on and off at night when they were trying to sleep. Like, these cats are really smart, and they desperately need all kinds of stimulation pretty much all of the time of day that they're awake. Anyway, this friend of mine had a Bengal cat, and she said she had wanted a Bengal cat her whole life. She worked up to it. She got a Bengal cat. She had him for a little while. He almost died from swallowing a piece of particle board from her bed. He was like within an inch of his life. Like, he had to be rushed to emergency services. He was given a huge surgery that was super expensive. Luckily, Danny is picking at paper, her favorite thing to do. Come here. Please don't do that right now. Do that later. He was rushed to emergency surgery. She had the money to pay for it. She paid for it. Luckily, he survived. But he almost died for real, while she was just out of the house normally for a few hours. Like, and she did blame herself. She was like, oh, she was like, I feel so bad, blah, blah, blah. But, like, did she buy that bed thinking her precious cat was going to bite off, and swallow a piece of it? No. That was never her intention. Obviously, she never would have fed her pet particle board. But he did it on his own. He bit it off, swallowed it on his own. And he almost died. Luckily, he made it. But I'm sure pets have died from chewing on stupid shit. And you didn't get there in time, while you were out of the house. Anyway, my husband's cat, before he met me, was actually hit on the same street. So clearly this is something that happens more often than we would like, unfortunately. Well, it's Vegas. We got a lot of idiots driving around here, but he saw his cat get hit, and he, got him to the emergency vet as quickly as he possibly could. And he got to the vet, and the vet was like, "Look, you can do this surgery. It's going to be $3,600, but we don't even know if he's going to make it. We don't even know if that would save him." And my husband didn't have $3,600, so he decided to euthanize it. I'm sure a lot of people are in that situation where their pet needs some kind of emergency treatment, emergency solution, and they don't have the money. But the thing is like, even if you did have the money to pay for that, you don't know if your pet would have survived. You don't know that, unfortunately. Here's the thing. And you know what? Maybe your pet would have survived. It's possible it would have made it through the surgery and everything, but maybe then it would have only lived 6 more months. Maybe it would have had a full life. But like, you can't just magically make money appear in your bank account, Danny, come here. Don't go in there. But even if you could magically, if you could call someone up and they could wire you money immediately and you could pay for the surgery, you don't know if your pet would make it. Danny, just come in the shot if you want to be in the video. The fact of the matter is whether or not you could afford the emergency surgery or the expensive medicine or expensive treatments that your pet needs to survive or to be doing better, your pet's gonna die. Period. All pets do. You just can't get around that fact. Like the death of your pet, yes, it could be delayed, but ultimately it's inevitable. And that sucks. It really does. I would also like to say here that pets are autonomous to some degree. They are. They move on their own. You don't move them around for them. They can make their own decisions. And maybe that'll unfortunately result in their death. Let me tell you this story, you guys, of an old family friend who had a wiener dog named Rodney. So this old family friend of mine had a wiener dog, and he was really old. He was 13 or older. And she noticed he was really just super old, not doing so hot. So she did make the decision to euthanize him. But the day of that happening, the day that they had their appointment to euthanize him, he got up and he seemed to be doing better. He seemed to be a lot more lively, and he wanted to go on a walk and stuff. So I think his owner did walk him one last time, and then they came home, and a lot of the houses in Portland of wealthy folk they're built on a giant hill, okay? So they have these decks that can have very steep drops. So when Rodney, the wiener dog, came home, she canceled the appointment even. He was doing so well, he seemed so with it that she was like, "Hey, I'm not coming, we're not coming. I think he's okay. Goodbye," to the vet. came home from the walk, and he fucking walked off the balcony and died. I had another friend who had a dog named Harley. He was old. He was older. I think he was older than 12. And I really don't remember where this was, but her family had some property or something out in the wilderness. Okay. So her parents took Harley there. It was something he loved. He was, in fact, really getting on in age, and it was showing. And they let him out wherever he normally went outside, and he disappeared. He wandered off, and they couldn't find him. And I think they probably looked for at least 2 days, but they couldn't find him. And they were like, "There's nothing we can do." They had to get home. And I think he probably made that decision on his own to just move on. I've heard of so many cats doing that. I've heard of some, we don't know what cats actually do. There's a cat right there interacting with another cat. We don't know what they're, thinking, but I think a lot of them do tend to choose their deaths to some degree. I believe that God took Check from me. And we'll get into that in a minute, but I love to play devil's advocate here and say that, even if you don't believe in God, the result of whatever happened is that your pet died. And there's nothing you can do. Maybe you did, maybe it was partially your fault, but there's no use in agonizing over your pet's death and agonizing over what you should have done differently because your pet died. And I'm sorry. I really thought I was going to have more time with Check. I wanted more time with Check. I did. But, euthanizing him wouldn't have been easy. Watching him deteriorate and get worse and worse and worse wouldn't have been easy. My friend, her dog is, her dog Billy is the same age as Check. They were born in the same year. And he's been having a lot of health problems, a lot of really serious ones. So she is contemplating putting him down. And I said, "Oh, well, have you tried this?" And she was like, "We can't afford that." She's like, it's not even an option, The option is, but even if she could afford whatever that was, what would you have gotten? 4 months? A year? Of him when he's already in pain? It just doesn't matter. Anything you do or say or whatever, a lot of it doesn't matter because your pet was going to die anyway. Period. I don't know if you guys know about these brachycephalic pets, but honestly, I love them. I think they're so fucking cute. The French bulldogs and Persians are brachycephalic. They have the wide head and the really, really short nasal cavity. They have a lot of breathing problems. I've seen so many of those type of cats and dogs drop dead because they can't breathe properly and they just die suddenly. And there's nothing you can do, right? Even if there is something you can do, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of pit bulls actually get a plastic surgery where they decrease the size of their nostrils so they can breathe easier. But still, your dog will have problems for his or her whole life if they have that shallow of a breathing hole. right? We just can't do everything. We're about to be done with this vid. I just want to say that Czech lived a full life, you know? He was gonna turn 12 next week. He had a long life, and he was with me almost all the time. We had all kinds of quality time together, and he had a really fun last day. He had some of the most delicious steak I've ever eaten. And on that day, days before that, I walked him, and we had some good walks and some good moments together. And I remember that day, I didn't normally do this, but I just went outside with him, and he just kind of lingered there for longer than he normally did. But I just chilled with him, and it was really special. All the time we have with them is really special. And of course I would have wanted him to live longer, but he didn't, and I need to celebrate the life that he had. I will get into my reasoning and the God thing, because I believe in God, you guys. I think that God gave him to me when I needed him the most. And we had all those amazing years together, all these amazing times together. And I think God took him away when I didn't need him anymore. I'm so sad and everything, but this is gonna happen. Even if he lived to be 20 years old, this is gonna happen. I forgot about this, but I recently remembered. I didn't forget. Who am I kidding? I just didn't think about this very often. When I first got Czech, once I had him for... When I first got Czech, it was kind of, it was an adjustment period. I absolutely am obsessed with dogs, and I always have been, but, it was an adjustment period, and it took me a while to get used to him, that kind of thing. But once I was fully, really attached to him, I had this horrible dream where, and this was so vivid and realistic to me, but in my dream, Czech just wasn't really himself. He wasn't doing so hot, and I wasn't terribly concerned, but I was like, oh, I should just take him to the vet. So I did. In my dream, took him to the vet, and I could tell right away, this is all in my dream, you guys, I could tell right away that the vet staff were acting really weird. Like, there was something really, really wrong with him in my dream, okay? And, like, their body language was just, like, all fucked up. But so, the vet kind of finally came back to me, and she said, really bad news. I'm really sorry, but your dog has rabies. And we're going to have to immediately euthanize him and also medically dispose of his body. And in my dream, I full on panicked. I lost it in my dream, kind of like how I lost it when he died a few days ago. But in my dream, I didn't get to say goodbye. I couldn't even say bye to him. He went for a routine examination in my dream, and I was never going to see him again. But I think that was actually a premonition of sorts, because I think that, I was just learning that he would die suddenly. That doesn't like change the way I feel now, but remembering that dream helps me out because I think that's what it was telling me. I really do. The last thing I'm gonna say before I wrap this video up is I think on some level we weirdly kind of know that our pets are gonna die. Hasn't this happened? I know this has happened to you guys. I know for a fact this has happened to you guys. This has happened to me with human beings, okay? Where you have some kind of interaction with someone and it just so happens to be your last. Or you have some kind of crazy conversation with someone and it just so happens to be your last. Or you have some kind of really memorable interaction with someone and it just so happens to be your last interaction with them. On some level, I did have at least an inkling that Check was going to die because I was thinking about it. I was like, God, it just came to my mind, you know, quite a few times in the months before his death. I was like, man, I know I'm going to have to say goodbye to Check one day, and that's going to suck. But like, I guess I was thinking that because he did in fact end up dying. What is comforting about the aftermath of a pet dying is the fact that people reach out. And they tell you they're sorry, and they tell you they love you, and you're reminded that you're loved and that your pet was loved. So I'm so sorry, everyone, but Check will not be in my videos anymore. Not in living form. I miss him a lot. But, you know, I can't bring him back. I wish I could, but I cannot. Before I actually end this video, I just want to say that, you know, we need to remember that life is unpredictable and things can change in an instant, and you need to celebrate a life, no matter how short or long it may have been. Also, quickly before I go, if you're grieving and you want to watch some cool movies about death, these aren't really about pets, but they are about people coming to terms with death. Watch Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Watch The Time Machine from 2002 with Guy Pearce. And watch Super 8 with actors whose names I'm not remembering right now, but that's okay. Something my husband said that I tend to agree with was, he said, you know, maybe it was time for us to help another animal, you know, like Check died so that another animal could be saved. Hold on. Pudge? Come here, Pudge. Come here. This is Pudge. She's real cool. She lives here too, but I don't know if you can see her. Can you see her? There she is. Pudge is 3 years old. We got her from the Humane Society. That's her tail. And she is such a cool dog. I think I want to do agility training with her because she's really athletic. She's got to gain some weight, but she's a real cool girl. Bye, everybody. That's Sheila. She likes to boss Pudge around. Love you. Hi, Pudge. Come up. Come up here. Hold on. Let's see if she can do it. Hold on. Pudge. Pudge. Come here. Yeah! Bye.